We are 2 races into the 2024 Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship, and already we have been treated to 2 absolute classics, really. Saturday afternoon's dry conditions produced everything you would anticipate to have from a Ginetta Junior race, but in the wet this morning, they really were on top form, and we're looking forward now to our 3rd race of the season and of the weekend in really much the same kind of conditions to those that we had this morning. The track conditions were potentially starting to improve only half an hour ago, but another shower has passed through, and we now have more standing water on the circuit and more challenging conditions for the drivers to be facing. We've got cars on the grid ahead of their green flag lap. I believe there may be a small delay as we possibly are missing one from the grid, but we'll try and get to the bottom of that in a moment or two. But what we do have is Issac Phelps on pole position. That's because he won the race earlier on today. If you haven't watched that race, I urge you to go back and do so, because Issac came from 8th on the grid and charged his way into the lead, then fended off a fired up Charlie Hart in the final couple of laps to hang on to the victory. It was a really, really good race, and Issac will now be feeling particularly confident, I think, starting from pole position. He was able to win from 8th, so from pole, this really should be a doddle, but I'm sure it will be anything but. Charlie Hart has been so near, yet so far to winning all weekend long. He's had 2 second-placed finishes so far this weekend, and he will love to go 1 step higher on the podium in this one. So how do they line up? Well, if you missed the race earlier on, it is the race result from race 2 that gives us the grid for race number 3. So the grid lineup is the way in which they finished that race this morning. And it is Issac Phelps, as I said, who won the race. He, the rookie driver, the rookie winner from that race as well, will line up on pole position alongside double runner-up so far this weekend, Charlie Hart. Chase Fernandez has been in the mix in both races, likely to be so again, starting from 3rd, alongside Aussie Ruben Dan. Henry Jocelyn, he's been in the wars a bit this weekend, but has race-winning potential. He starts 5th alongside Archie Clark. With Ethan Jeff Hall, the race 1 winner, went off the road earlier on in the day, and he will start from 7th alongside Tom Ingram Hill. Harry Moss and James Shotton complete the top 10 ahead of Alfie Davis and Jude Peters on row number 6. 7th row for Torrin Byrne and Nick Ellis. The 8th row shared by Max Cuthbert even and Colin Cronin. Row number 9 then is where we find Ethan Carney and Holly Mile, and on the 10th row of the grid, completing the top 20, we will have Giovanni Casal-Joseph and Jack Robinson. 11 of what is a 23-car grid sees James Ellis and Marcus Sater. Now, Marcus Sater should be quick. He's been quick all weekend, but had a puncture in the race earlier on today and had to make a pit stop, whilst Felix Livesey will complete the 23-car grid. So, as I said, the 2 races so far, we've had 2 different winners. Every chance, I think, of there being a 3rd different one in this one, because we have lots of drivers, many of them rookies actually, so sort of unknown quantities coming into the weekend, but lots of drivers capable of running at the front of the field. And in these wet conditions, it's arguably a little bit easier to overtake than it was in Saturday afternoon's dry race. In the dry, you defend the inside line, you sort of box everyone in together, and it's very difficult to make any progress. In the wet, though, you can get a bit more adventurous with your racing lines, and we saw some drivers, particularly Issac Phelps, really using that to his advantage in race number 2 earlier on. And now we'll be watching for perhaps the likes of Henry Jocelyn and Ethan Jeff Hall to come through from a bit further back. Ethan Jeff Hall put in a defensive masterclass on Saturday afternoon to win the first race, and starts 7th because he was towards the front of the field in race 2 and then slipped off the road and slipped back, the field being waved past the safety car to line up on the grid. But Ethan will be starting from that 7th position amongst a whole group actually of our racing drivers that are all going to be starting pretty close together. We've got 3 of them starting towards the back of the top 10. Ethan Jeff Hall is 7th, Tom Ingram Hill is 8th, and Harry Moss 9th for our racing. But it was all about Elite Motorsport, really, earlier on today. They had 3 cars in the top 4, and 4 of the top 6 in the top 6 were Elite Motorsport. So we have green flag at the back of the grid. We have red lights on, and our third round of the 2024 Ginetta Junior Championship bursts into life. Pretty even start at the front of the grid. Maybe Chase Fernandez carrying a bit more speed off the line from third, but can he do anything with it on the run towards Old Hall Corner? The answer is no. They arrive at turn 1 in grid order. The first change perhaps for fourth position is round the outside line. Archie Clark, I think that was, wasn't it, making a really good start. You're riding on board here with Henry Jocelyn, and he has got Ruben Dan's yellow and black machine ahead. But yes, it was 43 Archie Clark from 6th on the grid up to 4th as they drop down through Cascades. So through the left-hander they go, down the Lakeside Straight. There is the number 67 car of Marcus Sater. He is one to keep an eye on, definitely. Hasn't had the look, perhaps, this weekend, but should be able to march his way up into the top 10 before too long. So Elite 1-2 as they arrive at Island and Shell for the first time of asking. A very sedate start to the race, I have to say, with everybody sort of minding their P's and Q's, just dropping into line. In fact, we're single file even through Shell. Oh, there we go. There's Marcus Sater proving me wrong, trying to go to the outside of Jack Robinson in the number 45 car. Did that work? We'll have to wait and see in a moment or two. Risky to go around the outside at Shell because there's always the chance you'll get levered onto the dirt. Side by side through Britain's isn't much more advisable, really. And the number 70 there on the outside of Jude Peters was the one getting muscled out of line. They drop down the hill, though, and the man on the move definitely is Archie Clark, isn't it, in 4th position, having gained those 2 places off the line, showing no signs of stopping his forward progress now. He's challenging Chase Fernandez for 3rd, as again Jude Peters is battling this time with Nick Ellis. They clatter into each other at the Hislop chicane, and actually it's Nick who comes out of that worse. He's now got at the inside of him Colin Cronin and the number 18 of Torrin Burns, so could be 2 places lost here for Ellis. I think he might just keep the Irishman behind. Yes, he does, but did not quite go to plan. He was trying to gain a place around the outside, ended up losing 2 positions. Outside line for James Shotton there, battling with the number 74 of Alfie Davis. But the leaders are at Lodge, and it is, well, not really a breakaway anymore, is it? The leading group of 6 or 7 pretty close together. Up the inside, though, goes Henry Jocelyn. That was a late lunge, and he manages to nip into the top 5 now at the expense of Ruben Dan, who gets unsettled, gets forced offline, and here comes Ethan Jeff Hall, the race 1 winner, up the inside to break back into the top half dozen. Through Old Hall Corner they go then, and are we going to see 2 places gained by Ethan Jeff Hall? He's trying it up the inside of Henry Jocelyn, but as we've seen time and again today, you don't want to be on the inside at Old Hall, and actually that will cost him momentum on the exit of the turn, and Ruben Dan draws up alongside him. Drop down into Cascades. Here comes Dan. He's on the outside line into the left-hander, and Ethan Jeff Hall just suggests to Ruben that maybe that's not the best route to take, and Ruben Dan, rather sensibly, I think, decides to bail out of it. So down to Island Bend for the 2nd time. The battle at the moment is the one for 2nd. It's actually allowing Issac Phelps now to make good on his promise, really. It looked like he had good speed in race 1. He's immediately starting to charge ahead. Race 2, I should say. Starting to charge ahead in race 3 now. And looking like he's going to be difficult to catch. Through come some of the midfield runners, and Jude Peters there. It's all yellow flags at Ireland, so something's happened at that area of the circuit. The leaders are clear through. There's the issue. Is that the number 7 of Nick Ellis? I think it might be. Nick Ellis off the road. Now, he's made it out of the gravel trap, I think, if he's been through the gravel trap at all. But possibly has stalled the car and can't get it out of the mud. We'll wait and see if he can get going. If he can't, then we know what's coming. There was someone else slow there, out of Britain's too. So another from our leading group, or at least from inside the top 10, hitting trouble, and that's Colin Cronin. So Colin Cronin is off. Now that is an odd place to end up. Oh, and another spin now. This is down at Hislops, and that is Harry Moss pointing the wrong way. And he might not be the only one, because they're tapping into each other there as they came by him. That was the 67 of Marcus Sater going around the outside of a very sideways Giovanni Cassell-Joseph, who now finds himself in the dirt. He brings a load of that dirt back onto the track and thankfully manages to avoid a rotation. Now, time penalty for car number 17. That's James Shotton. A 10-second time penalty applied to the number 17 car. car for being out of position at the start. Henry Josselin jinks up the inside of Archie Clark. That was another really great bit of late braking. He's done that twice now, and it's netted him 4th place on this occasion. Unfortunately, though, with a couple of cars now potentially in dangerous positions, the safety car has been scrambled, so the race will be neutralised, and Issac Phelps' 1 second lead that he had, courtesy of a fastest lap last time around, will now evaporate, and Charlie Hart and Chase Fernandez will be right back on terms with him. So typically breathless opening lap or two, but Issac Phelps so far clear of the drama. There is Colin Cronin's car being pushed into a very handily placed gap in the barrier at the foot of Hilltop. So Colin Cronin out of the way. There's a bit of bodywork that needs removing up on the entrance to Druids. From whom that came, I'm not sure, but it's off the racing line. But whilst we run to safety car, the marshals, I'm sure, will take the opportunity to get it cleared out of the way. And there is the number 7. So Ellis got going again. That's good. That rather suggests maybe the piece of bodywork came from the back of his car. But there seem to be a few bits of Ginetta around the circuit. There is the bit, oh no, it's not his, it's a blue and white rear bumper that's missing. I just saw Nicholas Ellis's bumper up at the scene of his particular moment at Island Bend. So if all of the marshals club together after this race, I reckon they could build a Ginetta G40 out of the parts that they've all collected from various locations around the circuit. Third race of the day, and that's often the lively one, isn't it? Not that the first two were dull by any means, but race number 3 is often where, with little to lose, drivers feel that they may as well just throw everything at this. When I say little to lose, there isn't another race, so if the cars get damaged, that's the team's problem then, isn't it? And of course, there's no next race from which this race result can form a grid. If it all goes wrong, then okay, not the end of the world. So the field heads down through the Hislops chicane. And we have the race neutralised by the safety car. There's confirmation of that 10-second penalty for the number 17 of James Shotton. There he goes through picture, almost like we planned it. And the Fox Motorsport driver is unfortunately, well, he's really not going to be happy to see the safety car, is he? Because this bunches everybody together now behind him and puts more people within 10 seconds of him. So, OK, we'll have still half the race to go, hopefully, when the safety car comes in. In fact, we'll have more than half the race to go because the safety car is in this time, and that's good news for James Shotton. He needs to try and get his head down now and pull a gap on the group of cars behind, although in Ginetta Junior racing, that is not an easy thing to do. So, James Shotton rounds Druids. The race restart now in the hands of Issac Phelps, who will have to decide when he wants to hit the accelerator, when he wants to restart the race. Of course, no overtaking until they cross the timing line, but he can accelerate whenever he wants. He's chosen to do so quite early, actually. That's an interesting choice because Charlie Hart went with him, so they're going to be absolutely together as they come out of Lodge Corner. Chase Fernandez 3rd, remember, Henry Josselin 4th. Now, he's the one I'm interested in here because Henry Josselin has been very, very racy so far. Those 2 brilliant moves that he's made at Lodge Corner prove that he has found a way to overtake where perhaps others have struggled. So what can he do now about the top 3? Wasn't a great restart for Archie Clark, so he's dropped back a bit in 4th. We're right on board with Henry Josselin now, and that is his next target. Chase Fernandez in the sights. Where does he try and make a move? Fernandez is bottled in behind Charlie Hart. Side by side behind, that is Ethan Jeff Hall trying to find a way around Archie Clark. Can he do it at Cascades? Tries to go the long way round. Ruben Dan has got a grandstand view of this battle, a view that he shares with us now, courtesy of the onboard camera, and they are going to go side by side down the lakeside straight. Ethan Jeff Hall looks to the inside, but ultimately didn't quite have enough of an overlap, so instead switches back to the outside. Now, this would be one of the moves of the weekend if he pulls that off right round the outside at Island Bend. I don't mind if I do, says Ethan Jeff Hall. That was superb driving. Archie Clark, in fairness, made sure that he didn't run wide and squeeze him off the road, and through goes the R Racing driver. So brilliant stuff that from Ethan. And he is now back into the top 5, and that was a timely move as well because Archie did seem to be dropping back on that restart. The leading quartet have pulled away slightly. What pace now does our new 5th place man have, and is he able to close in on the leading quartet? Over Hilltop we come then. Still Phelps leads, Hart 2nd, Fernandez 3rd, Josselin 4th. None of them likely to make a move down into the chicane. I've had everybody pretty single file all the way through the field. A couple of potential battles further back. The number 45 there is Jack Robinson, under threat, real threat, from the number 53 car of Ethan Carney, who slips through very nicely on the inside line. Ethan made that look very easy, actually. The door was left wide open and he was only too grateful to step right through it. So purple sectors all round at the moment for Issac Phelps as he tries to get his head down at the head of the pack and pull clear. This, meanwhile, the battle for 7th place. Ruben Dan with Alfie Davis on his tail. Down into Lodge Corner, though, no one yet able to do anything amongst the podium runners. And actually, Henry Josselin not looking that likely to challenge Chase Fernandez for the time being. We're back on board with Ruben Dan. Second gear, over the crest of the hill, through the dip where the water always collects before launching back past the pits over Deer Leap. Ruben Dan cannot see the car ahead. His view is slightly better than ours. The windscreen wiper doesn't really cover the left-hand side of the windscreen, which is where our camera is. He sits on the right, but it's not great visibility, and that wasn't a great line through Old Hall Corner. Nearly lost control over that wet and slippery painted curb and concrete runoff area. Everybody just sort of spreading out a little bit now, though, aren't they? Here, perhaps, is the man to focus on. Marcus Sater in the number 67 car. And his next target will be the number 31. That's Felix Livesey. That would be for 12th position. There's someone in the gravel further back. Who is that? That was a white and blue car in the gravel at Cascades. We'll have to wait and see who doesn't come through at the end of that sector. That might have been the number 21 of Giovanni Cassell-Joseph, who hasn't completed Sector 1 on this lap, and it is the number 21 of Giovanni Cassell-Joseph, and he's well into the gravel trap, and that car ain't moving, is it? That's going to need a recovery, and hopefully they'll choose to do that after the race has finished. If he's that far off the track, we'll wait and see what the decision is from race control. But yeah, certainly the likes of Marcus Sater, he won't want to see a safety car here because he's making good progress through the field. We're on board with one of the cars just ahead of him, Jude Peters. The 70 machine. Just collect 5th gear for a moment and then back down through the box. Careful not to downshift too quickly. That'll lock the rear axle and send you around. But actually, that was the least of Jude's issues because up the inside went Felix Livesey to snatch 11th place away. So Felix Livesey gains a position. And that means that now Jude has got the recovering Sater behind him. So Marcus Sater started 22nd on the grid, now challenging for 12th position, but no longer because the safety car has been scrambled for the 2nd time in this race, and that is as a result of the car off at Cascades. It may be a long way off the road, but if one car can skate off the track into that position, then another one very feasibly could do the same. So for safety, we have to have the safety car out. The safety car might want to get a move on because the pack are already crossing the line and heading for Old Hall Corner. Now it does accelerate, slides and slithers its way out of the pit lane. The Ginetta G56 to collect Issac Phelps, who once again had pulled out the best part of a 1-second lead, only to have it disappear with the arrival of the safety car once more. So round we head once again at... Oh, now, there was a car pointing the wrong way in the pit lane, and it looked a little bit like the safety car. I don't think the safety car made it out of the pit lane. I think that there's been a little bit of a drama. We saw them struggling for traction coming out of the pit box, and I do not see the safety car out on track. So that's a new one. Issac Phelps will have to pretend that he's the safety car for the time being. And he's probably wondering where on earth it is, but Issac Phelps is the leader and will now have to try and control the pace himself. Charlie Hart going in line behind him. And Chase Fernandez, who's been 3rd since the start of the race, is still sat in 3rd place and hasn't ever really looked like challenging the Elite Motorsport cars ahead of him, has he? So, and actually, in fairness, for what it's worth, Henry Josselin not really looking all that racy either after the restart, but it's difficult when the race stops and then starts and then stops again to get into your rhythm. Racing drivers often talk about being in the rhythm, in the groove. That comes with repeated laps, and being interrupted by safety cars doesn't really help them with that. So anyway, we've got just over a quarter of the race to go. And this may take a couple of laps, I fear, to get the number 21 machine dug out of the gravel trap. I fear that we might not have a huge amount of green flag running to go, but we'll wait and see. The marshals have been known to work wonders. There's the safety car picking them up at the top of Clay Hill. And the pack will now slow down to full safety car pace. And hopefully, like I said, we'll only see this for a couple of laps, but all depends how long it takes to, well, first of all, get a recovery vehicle down to Cascades, then get the recovery vehicle attached to the number 21 machine of Giovanni Cassell-Joseph, then drag it out, and then, of course, get the car to a place of safety. You can't just drag it out and leave it there. Either Giovanni will drive it back to the pit lane, or it will be hoiked into a place of safety behind the barriers. That all takes a little bit of time. It's certainly been an eventful first 3 rounds of the Ginetta Junior Championship, and it's going to be a busy season for all of our Ginetta Racing Championships, actually. 8 events over the course of the year, 7 of them alongside the British GT Championship. We also have the second year of the Ginetta G-Fest, which will take place this year at Anglesey. We actually had 2 last year, one at Silverstone, one at Cadwell Park. And they will have the G-Fest at Anglesey in the middle of the year. That will be the 29th and 30th of June, hoping for some good weather that weekend. No better place to be in the UK, motor racing wise, I don't think, than the Anglesey circuit on a lovely summer's day. Now, that windscreen wiper on Jude Peters' car doesn't really seem to be doing an awful lot, does it? I think it's come away from the windscreen slightly. It is clearing the patch directly in front of the driver, but that's about all it's clearing, so it's not the most effective. He'll be quite grateful, I think, to be going at slightly lower speed for a lap or two. As we saw a moment or two ago, they were cracking on with the recovery of the number 21 car, which is, I think, out of harm's way already. So I'm hopeful for a restart at the end of this lap. The last lap was just a shade under 3 minutes, and we have 3.5 minutes to go now. So we will probably only have 1 lap at the end of this one. Hopefully that lap will be spent at racing speed. Issac Phelps certainly setting his stall as one of the early season favourites, isn't he? Didn't have a brilliant run in Saturday's race, I seem to recall. Where did he end up? Well, actually, no, that is not true. He ended up 3rd, just didn't qualify particularly well for race 2, which is why he had to come through from 8th to the win. Something he would probably have found more difficult to do in the dry, so he would have been quite happy, I think, to have woken up this morning to find it was a wet Oulton Park that greeted him. And then same again now for race number 3. He seems to have the pace in the wet, but will that continue at Silverstone in a few weeks' time? We shall have to wait and see. The 27th and 28th of April we will head to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, Silverstone 500 weekend, and the Ginetta Championships will be there in support as ever. Right, then we're heading over Clay Hill. We are on board with Henry Jocelyn in 4th. Are we going to be racing at the end of this lap? It will be a 1-lap shootout if that's the case. We're hoping to see the lights out on the Ginetta safety car, which we do, and so we are going to race 1 more lap around the 2.7 mile Oulton Park International Circuit. And Issac Phelps just needs to keep his cool here. He's got Charlie Hart behind him, but he'll be very familiar with that site after spending the bulk of the second half of this morning's race in the same situation. Just needs another good restart, and then not to put a foot wrong. Look at how close Henry Jocelyn's getting to Chase Fernandez ahead of him. We are accelerating now, though, so it looks as though Issac Phelps has pulled the pin. Charlie Hart going with him really in 2nd place, but through Lodge it looks as though Phelps has managed to sort of double that gap, really, to a couple of cars' lengths. Over Deerlink we go then, underneath the bridge, across the timing line. Time for 1 more lap of racing in the 3rd round of the Ginetta Junior Championship. And who is going to have the victory at the end of this lap? Well, at the moment it looks good for Issac Phelps. He continues to lead through Old Hall Corner. There goes Marcus Sater up the inside of Jude Peters at Old Hall. Almost leaning on each other, just avoided doing so. Peters ends up out wide over the curb. Now, where is Sater? Should still be somewhere to our right, I suspect. But no, we're taking the normal racing line into Cascades, and they're not side by side. And Jude at the moment manages to hang on, but very, very poor visibility in the spray as they drop down through Cascades and head down the side of the lake once again. Challenge on for 3rd is that. Henry Jocelyn looking to the inside of Chase Fernandez, but Chase chops across, gets to the apex first, and Jocelyn almost runs out of road going through Ireland, and that means that Saturday's winner, Ethan Jeff Hall, is now pulling alongside. That's the outside line through the Shell hairpin. Again, by the time they get off the corner, it's all sort of neutralised itself, or has it? Actually, Ethan's still coming, gets alongside, gets a nose ahead, outside line into Britain's. Jocelyn's never going to let him have that, sails in over the curb, and manages to get the car stopped for the chicane. Hangs on to fourth. Isaac Phelps, though, doing everything right, really. Here comes over the top of the hill, down towards the Hislop chicane. Charlie Hart is a good 3 or 4 car lengths back. The real battling is going on behind. Look at Ruben Dan there, the yellow and black car, trying to get past his Elite Motorsport teammate, Archie Clark. But really, only one more overtaking opportunity to come. That is into Lodge Corner. Although we've seen a few drag races to the line, actually, today out of Lodge. So if you can get a good exit, you can out-drag someone sometimes before the timing line. Perhaps that's now the only option left to Ruben Dan, really, to try and get past his teammate. They head towards Druids, absolutely bumper to bumper, the two teammates. Still in the same order, Ethan Jeff Hall sideways into the right-hander, and did well to keep it between the white lines. There is just no grip, so much standing water out at the far end of the circuit under the trees, which always takes a long time to dry out. But Isaac Phelps has mastered the conditions well and truly. A podium yesterday, a race win this morning, and now he becomes the first double victor of the season. He will accelerate out of Lodge, he will head for the checkered flag. Further back, another place is gained by Marcus Sater, but it is Isaac Phelps who wins his second race of the day, and this time does it again over Charlie Hart, who has been second 3 times this weekend, and Chase Fernandez notches up another podium finish. That is his second third place finish of the weekend as well. Rest of them cycling through further back, but that was a really, really good drive that by Isaac Phelps. He dealt with the pressure on the 2 safety car restarts really well. He was really flawless in both of the races today, has not made a mistake, wasn't deterred by his slightly lowly grid position in the race earlier on this morning. It was a fighting drive, that one, but this time he actually made it look pretty easy, really. The eventual winning margin only half a second, but every time we had a couple of green flag laps without safety car intervention, he seemed able to pull the gap a little bit further than that. Never really looked all that likely to lose the lead. So the Ginetta Junior Championship's third race of the weekend is a second win of the weekend for Isaac Phelps, with Charlie Hart, his Elite Motorsport teammate, once again joining him on the podium. And in fact, it's the same podium as we had earlier on today, with Chase Fernandez in third. Henry Jocelyn was fourth, ahead of Ethan Jeff Hall fifth, Archie Clark sixth, Ruben Dan seventh, Alfie Davis eighth, Tom Ingram Hill was ninth, and the top 10 completed by Felix Livesey. Marcus Sater came from 22nd on the grid to finish 11th, ahead of Max Cuthbert. Jude Peters slipped to 13th towards the end, ahead of Jack Robinson, Torrin Byrne, Ethan Carney, Harry Moss, Holly Mile, James Ellis, and Nicholas Ellis in 20th after a drama at Shell. James Shotton was 21st, whilst Giovanni Cassell-Joseph and Colin Cronin both failed to reach the flag. The third race of the weekend in the Ginetta Junior Championship here at Oulton Park saw a light-to-flag victory then for Isaac Phelps, who got the jump on his Elite Motorsport teammate Charlie Hart on the run into the first corner. Chase Fernandez was the lone ranger, actually. 4 of the top 5 cars in the early going run out of the Elite Motorsport awning. They have looked strong all weekend. Meanwhile, side-by-side action further back in the field. Jude Peters was at the centre of a lot of the early action, actually. First of all, losing a place at Britain's and then trading some paint with Nicholas Ellis down at the Britain chicane. But Jude managed to hang on to the place. Nicholas's race would unravel a little bit later on from this, but that was up at the Shell hairpin. There was a good drive being put in by the R Racing cars further back, but not really for Harry Moss, who got turned into a spin down at the Hislop chicane and would rejoin at the back of the field. 2 safety car periods, very, very tricky conditions. None of this could stop Isaac Phelps from romping home to the victory. He survived 2 safety car restarts and managed always to keep his teammate Charlie Hart at arm's length, having won earlier on in the day and had a podium on Saturday. Isaac Phelps setting his stall out as one of the early season championship favourites as he claimed a second victory of the weekend at Oulton Park.